This is a sundial. It's an old instrument that tells you what time it is. Not the exact time, but it does work. The problem is it only works in direct sunlight, so it's not going to work hanging on a wall in your house. But there's something about a physical clock on a wall that I like.
I like it.
I know we all have clocks on our phones, but sometimes I like to just look up to see the time rather than pushing a button and swiping. Now, with a few modifications, you can turn just about anything into a clock. So for today's quick project, I want to show you how I turned this 35mm film reel into a wall clock. I'm Tom, and that's today's quick project. Before I show you how I made that film reel clock, which by the way is a lot more difficult than it looks, I thought you might be interested in seeing 5 really cool DIY clocks that you can make, starting with this. This is my banjo clock. I'm sure it could have been restored back into a functioning banjo. Well, I'm not musically inclined, but I am upcycling inclined, so I decided to make something a little more useful and interesting to me. This is a clock I made using a technique called chip carving. It started out as a flat, round piece of basswood. Every detail, including the 60 tick marks, were hand carved and hand painted. This clock started out as an inexpensive clock template I bought at the Hobby Lobby store. I spiced it up with a coat of paint, added a picture of yarn, and then coated it with some epoxy. For this clock, I wish I had enough skill to paint this winter scene. I bought it about 20 years ago because I love the idea of using an old saw blade, upcycling it, and turning it into a work of art. And a clock. This clock I made took a little more planning. I combined some scrap wood, old license plates, and a map of the state I live in to make this unique clock.
And now, our feature presentation.
For my film reel clock, I first need to make some modifications to the reel. In order to inset the clock mechanism, I'm removing the center hub on the back side. I'm hoping the one on the other side doesn't fall out after I do this. This is a 1-inch clock mechanism. It was the longest they had at the hobby store near me. Normally, I'd put a nut to hold the mechanism in place, but this is 1/8 of an inch too short. No worries, I always have a workaround. I'll use some double-sided sticky foam to keep it in place. Now I'll cut away the exposed foam on the front. I don't want the black quartz mechanism to stand out so much, so I'll paint the exposed parts silver. All of the clock hands at the store were either too short or too long. I bought the longer ones and cut them down to the size I needed. I'll drill a hanging hole and then clean up the sharp metal burr. Applying the numbers are tricky. I don't have a flat or complete surface to stick them onto. I'll use more of the sticky foam strategically placed and painted black so the foam doesn't stand out. Now it's time to hang up my creation. Well, I thought that was a real cool clock. I'd show you more, but I'm out of time. After all, YouTube is my second job. I've got to go see the doctor now about a funny tic I've developed. I think I'm just too wound up. It's time to punch out now because I don't get paid by the hour. Okay, that's 7 puns if you're counting, which is 7 puns way too many. I'm Tom, this is Allie Picked, and thanks for putting up with my really bad jokes.